In the macho world of sport, a declaration of homosexuality attracts spades of tabloid flack. As for the confessions of clerics, there are column inches of moral outrage. And despite the recent high-profile case of homosexuals in the army who took their case for acceptance to the High Court, lost, but drew words of support from the judge who said the tide was turning, it's still not permissible to be a gay member of the military. According to a leading member of the gay community, that tide is market-driven.
Because such vast amounts of money are involved in producing these programmes, in taking risks with TV programmes. And so Barrymore is popular now. Whether it will be popular at this time next year is anybody's guess, but the TV executives will move with the public mood. And if Barrymore is seen to be unacceptable to that great Middle England, they'll dump him.
If it's all about perception, then, according to the most recent survey, the public is still very conservative about sexual relations between adults of the same sex. In 1983, 62% thought such relations were always or mostly wrong, with only 17% saying it was not wrong at all. 10 years later, 64% thought relations are always or mostly wrong, and just 18% think there's nothing wrong with it at all. Last year, Michael Barrymore was voted the best ITV performer in the National Comedy Awards. This year, he's favourite to win Grampian's National TV Award, which will be announced next week. If Barrymore is still as popular, other closet homosexuals in the public arena might follow his lead. I'm joined now by the Shadow Heritage Secretary, Chris Smith, the actor Ian McKellen, and a consultant psychotherapist, Dr Chess Denman. First of all, Chris Smith, this has been a high-profile case, but do you think generally attitudes are changing?
I think overwhelmingly what the general public think is that what matters is whether someone's a good television presenter, whether they're a good politician, whether they're a good doctor or actor, and it doesn't actually matter whether they happen to be gay or not. And I think that's the robust view which the great majority of people in the general public take.
Ian McKellen, would you take that view?
It's very difficult to judge public opinion, isn't it? But it doesn't explain, if you're right, Chris, why there are only 2 of you in the House of Commons who are out, and none, I think, in the House of Lords. Some in local government, of course. I think everyone coming out is frightened of what somebody else is going to think, and I think we shouldn't be frightened of the public. When I meet them, and my postbag is full of praise and thanks for me coming out, it's the intervening people who advise us, you know, your manager, my manager, agents and so on, and they all have a view of public opinion which is probably contrary to the truth, but it exists, and their power exists, and it explains why so few people, as Angela Mason-Stonewall was saying, in any sphere of public life, feels that they are confident enough to come out.
There is a lack of confidence among gay people.
I think undoubtedly, and you can tell that by the example of the House of Commons, and there are 2 of us who are openly gay.
And proportionately, that's not going to be the final figure, is it, if you believe the national proportion?
Who knows? But I mean, what has been demonstrated, I think, very clearly all the way around the world, in the United States, in Canada, and indeed in my own case, is that coming out, being honest about yourself, being honest with the electorate and saying, I'm gay, so what, now let's get on with the business of being a politician, actually reaps electoral rewards. People vote for you.
But Dr Denman, do you seriously think that that is the experience for the majority of people? Chris Smith attained a position of power from which he could then say, I am gay. But for a lot of people, what about the mechanic, the nurse, the person that wants a job as a computer programmer? Are they computer programmers first and gay second in the eyes of the public?
Well, I think it depends very largely on what area of public life they're in. If you're talking about people who fix your car or people whose job it is to mend your computer, then the general public probably doesn't mind very much.
What about your own profession?
You're talking about teachers and psychotherapists. I think people get worried because of the stereotyping of gay men and lesbians. They think that people who are gay or lesbian may have unpleasant attitudes towards children, which is ridiculous, but the public can think that.
In your own profession, though, the medical profession is not known for being incredibly liberal. Have you come up against, and do you still come up against problems?
Oh yes, there's a widespread perception amongst psychotherapists that whilst homosexuality isn't perhaps a very severe problem, it represents, I think Freud said it was an arrest of development, and that if your development is arrested, then how can you help others to develop properly? Most particularly, I can remember being told as a young trainee that I might not be able to understand what heterosexual couples were going through, and so I wouldn't be able to help them as a psychotherapist.
But Ian McKellen, how do you, the fundamental change in attitudes presumably has to come way back, doesn't it?
You have to set what we're talking about within the context of the United Kingdom as a whole. When you have laws which forbid behaviour which straight people would take for granted, when there's an unequal age of consent, when children at school are not taught the facts about homosexuality, about their own homosexuality, about the homosexuality of their friends, same at universities and so on, when there are inhibitions in employment, when you can legally be sacked simply on grounds of your homosexuality, there is no law stopping that, is it any wonder that people find a difficulty coming to terms with their own homosexuality? And I don't think people should get the impression that there are all sorts of people in public life absolutely at ease with being lesbian or gay and just refusing to tell the public about it. They probably haven't told their mother. It's as simple as that. I bet there's a member of the cabinet who hasn't yet got round to telling his or her mother, and it's only the day that they do that they will then be free to tell their next best friend, who's the public.
Chris Smith, do you think a Labour government then would have an education system which taught various sexualities from an early age in order to, as it were, kill the bogeyman?
I think it's important that in education and in all walks of life we tell people about the facts of life, and we tell people about fairness and about treating people equally, and that should be at the heart of our legal system.
But the problem is, isn't it, that the survey shows that people do not take that attitude. There is no evidence to support your view that people do take that attitude.
No, and what people I think are worried about, and yes, many people find it strange, it's behaviour that they themselves are not attracted to, and they take time and need to be perhaps led by knowing people into an acceptance of the validity of people being gay or lesbian. But despite that nervousness that people have about it, I think basically most people are fair and want to regard people as being equal, want to regard people as having valid lives, whatever their sexuality may be.
Chess, you have written about people's prejudices, why some are fascinated by homosexuality, some people are repelled by it, and some people just can't deal with it. And what do you find then?
Well, one of the things that we find when people are very, very strongly prejudiced against something is that they have a secret worry that this might be all right, but they don't want to admit that it is all right. And so people who write very, very anti-homosexual or very racist articles are often unconsciously fascinated by or even attracted to that way of life. But I wanted to make another point. I think that it makes a great difference if you say to somebody, what do you think about gay sex? What do you think about gays? What do you think about lesbians? Then if you say to somebody, now what do you think about your friend? And that's the real point about coming out. The more people who come out, the more people there are to relate to, rather than just statistics or figures.
But Ian, it can't just be a case, though I'm sure it often is, that people don't come out to their families but often come out to their peers. It surely must be fear of the establishment hitting back.
Yes, and I was frightened for 49 years that I wouldn't have a career playing heterosexual parts if the public knew I was gay. It's made not one blind bit of difference. But it's easy enough for me, it's easy enough for Michael Barrymore, it's easy enough in a sense for Chris Smith. We are established in our business. People know us, and therefore they know one more thing about us. But we should end on an optimistic note. Young people, I mean really young people below the age of consent are happy to come out and tell their parents and friends at school at an age when the law says they mustn't make love with each other, and before they've decided what they're going to do, politician, sportsman, entertainer, doctor, that they are going to admit their sexuality to themselves and to the world, and they will find the career which allows them to be openly and happily gay.
But realistically, do you think we'd ever see a situation where we had a gay Prime Minister?
Oh yes, I mean within 30 or 40 years.
Thank you all very much indeed. Just before we go, a quick look at the papers. First of all, the Times. And there's the advance of Sir Patrick Mayhew's speech tomorrow planned to free 130 terrorist prisoners. The Independent, hundreds of terrorists to be freed early. And then more on the church story, church reels from cult bloody bro, saying there's a crisis in the Church of England. And moving on now to look at the Herald Trib, Harry Wu is expelled after being given that prison sentence. That's all from Newsnight tonight. Peter will be back with more tomorrow night. Until then, from all of us in the programme, a very good night.